Today, we're going to reconstruct a chilling sequence of events that started off as a tragic mountain resort fire, but, as you'll see, very quickly unraveled into a dark, highly calculated crime. We're literally looking at the anatomy of an investigation here, breaking down how one single, tiny piece of evidence can flip an entire case completely upside down. So picture this scene. It's 4 a.m. You've got this small, older resort perched way up on a mountain, and it is just entirely engulfed in flames. By the time the fire department actually gets up there, the whole structure has already collapsed. It's a completely devastating scene, and it really sets the stage for what turns into a deeply complex puzzle.
Now, the stark reality of this incident is pretty grim. There were 5 friends inside the resort that night, but out of those 5, only one made it out alive. His name is Jason Miller. He was found outside with partial burns, and from his hospital bed, his initial statement to the police was really simple. He claimed the whole thing happened incredibly fast. According to Jason, the group was just sitting around, chatting, hanging out, when suddenly this fire just broke out of nowhere. And honestly, initially, the police were fully prepared to write this off as a tragic accident. The resort was super old, the electrical wiring was known to be pretty faulty, so the narrative of an accidental electrical fire fit perfectly. It made sense.
But here's where we hit a snag. We immediately see this glaring contradiction between Jason's super calm story of a quiet hangout and what the resort owner experienced. And good investigators know that these small inconsistencies, they're usually the thread that unravels the whole sweater. The owner reported that, the group had been pretty quiet for most of the night, but around 1 a.m., he heard a loud, genuinely terrifying scream coming from their room. Now, when Jason was pressed on this, he completely doubled down. He insisted, no, we were just hanging out. This tiny but absolutely significant discrepancy threw up a massive red flag for the lead officer. Suddenly, things just weren't adding up.
And that gut suspicion, that led to a much more meticulous search of the rubble. Which brings us to the absolute most crucial piece of evidence in the entire case. Hidden beneath all that charred wood and ash, investigators found a voice recorder. It was half-burned, completely mangled on the outside, but against all odds, and I mean literally miraculously. The memory card inside was perfectly intact. Finding this single piece of technology completely changed the entire trajectory of the investigation. It shifted everything from a routine accident inquiry into something far more sinister. So the police take this card, and when they play back the recovered audio in that dead silent room, it did not sound like a casual hangout right before an electrical fire. Not at all. The timeline progresses so clearly. It starts off completely normally, you hear laughter, you hear the clinking of glasses, just friends talking. But then the atmosphere abruptly shifts. The laughter just stops. An argument breaks out. The tension escalates so rapidly into physical sounds. You hear a struggle, the unmistakable crash of a chair falling over onto the floor. And finally, right in the middle of all that chaos, someone screams the word fire. And then the recording just abruptly cuts out.
But it's what they said during that tense argument that made the police listen in absolute silence. Specific words were exchanged that are just bone-chilling. One voice asks, "Why are you bringing that up again?" And the response is a total threat, because the truth can't stay hidden forever. After a few seconds of really heavy silence on the tape, another, deeper voice demands, "You're not telling anyone." And guys, this is the exact moment the physical struggle begins. This piece of dialogue proves unequivocally that a severe conflict was happening right as that fire started. Someone was desperately trying to keep a major secret buried.
Armed with this entirely new timeline, the investigator marches right back to Jason. And let me tell you, the dynamic of this interview completely changed. When he was confronted about this intense argument they literally had on tape, Jason tried to play it off as just some minor disagreement over an old issue. But when the officer leaned in and pressed him, asking specifically what that old issue actually was, Jason's face went completely pale. He swallowed hard and simply said, "I don't remember." At this exact point, the investigator knew with absolute certainty this was no accident. Jason was actively, intentionally hiding the truth. So what do? The investigators decide to dig way deeper into the background of these 5 friends. And what they found was a shocking connection that tied this fiery night to a 2-year-old cold case. Turns out, 2 years prior, this exact same group of friends had started a business together. But shortly after they launched, all the business funds mysteriously vanished. Poof, gone. And right on the heels of that missing money, another friend in their circle, a guy named Nathan Reed, completely disappeared without a trace. That missing persons case, it had never been solved.
Let's just pause here for a second, because you really have to feel the weight of this moment. The investigator realizes, standing in this silent interrogation room, that the scope of what they are dealing with has just expanded massively. They aren't just looking at a fatal fire that claimed 4 lives anymore. No. They are looking at the explosive, deadly fallout of a 2-year-old unsolved mystery involving embezzlement and a missing person. This fire was just the final, brutal chapter of a much older, much darker story.
Knowing that the real answer had to be somewhere on that tape, the police decided to go back to the recording. But this time, they ran it through serious audio enhancement and cranked the volume all the way up to its maximum limit. They were hunting for micro details, those tiny acoustic clues buried under all the yelling and the sounds of the scuffle right in those frantic final seconds before the fire actually ignited.
And this right here is the massive turning point of the entire explainer. On that enhanced playback, just a split second before the shout of fire, forensics identified a very specific, incredibly faint metallic sound, a clink. After some really careful analysis, they confirmed exactly what it was, the unmistakable sound of a metal petrol can lid being popped open. I mean, the temperature in that investigation room must have just dropped. This definitive proof completely shattered the electrical short theory. This wasn't bad wiring, this was deliberate, calculated arson. Presented with this totally overwhelming mountain of evidence, Jason finally breaks down. He confesses to the dark timeline they'd been hiding. The truth was, 2 years ago, the group had embezzled their own business funds. Nathan Reed, the missing friend, had actually found out about it. To keep their secret safe, they silenced Nathan. That's why he disappeared. Fast forward to the night at the resort, the guilt had finally eaten away at one of the friends so badly that they decided they just couldn't live with the secret anymore.
So, the absolutely crucial turning point is this single sentence, "I'm going to the police." Spoken by that guilt-ridden friend, this is the exact phrase that triggered the deadly chain reaction. This was the threat that caused the utter panic in that room. It sparked the argument over the hidden truth, it led directly to the physical struggle we heard on the tape, and ultimately, it resulted in someone dropping an open can of petrol right in the middle of a wooden room.
Now, Jason explains to the police how the fire instantly spread across the room, trapping the other 4 inside while he miraculously, somehow, managed to escape the flames. But the officer realizes there is still one massive, glaring piece of the puzzle missing here. Someone had to bring that petrol can into the room. Someone physically popped that lid. So the officer looks Jason dead in the eye and asks, who actually started the fire? And to this question, Jason completely shuts down. He absolutely refuses to say another word.
In response to Jason's sudden silence, the officer does something incredible. He plays the final 2 seconds of the enhanced tape directly for him. Right at the very, very end, amidst the roaring, crackling sound of the flames literally consuming the room, a very weak, incredibly haunting voice can be heard cutting through all that noise. The voice simply asks, "Jason, what did you do?"
Confronted with this incredibly damning piece of audio, Jason doesn't even argue. He doesn't try to defend himself at all. He just lowers his head, stares blankly at the floor, and remains entirely silent. It's a chilling conclusion, isn't it? It really forces us to look back at all this evidence and ask ourselves the ultimate question. Did Jason Miller merely get lucky and escape a tragic fire caused by a panic struggle? Or did he deliberately open that petrol can himself to ensure he was the only one left alive to tell the story? It is a dark, stark reminder of how deep secrets can be buried and what people will actually do to keep them there.